comes to movie directors, based on the sheer amount of yearly film releases, it's virtually impossible to carve a name out for yourself in an ever-growing industry. Now, of course, those that have are revered by the public, always awaiting their next feature. Tarantino, Nolan, Scorsese, Bong Joon-ho to name a few, although none are as infamous as
M. Night Shyamalan.
Who's given us some of the best thrillers and twists of all time.
I see dead people.
And, well, you know...
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No!
Which brings us to Knock at the Cabin, his newest feature, a home invasion with a twist. Going into the film, I didn't have any particular expectations and hadn't seen any of the trailers, but it is written and directed by Shyamalan, so that's enough to send a shiver down my spine.
I fear nothing. Ah! Little jumpy, are you?
While vacationing at a remote cabin in the woods, fathers Eric, Andrew, and their daughter Wen are taken hostage by 4 armed assailants who claim to be godsends, forcing an unthinkable ultimatum on the trio that, if succeeded, will end the supposed forthcoming biblical apocalypse. The film's plot is simple, it never at any point becomes convoluted or strays too far off that your suspension of disbelief is ruined. The simplicity of the plot leaves room for lots of character interactions and drama, which it does well, but has the difficult task of introducing almost all the characters in one long sequence, since the film jumps straight into the narrative.
Something very familiar about all this.
The movie's main problem stems from its lack of ambiguity and faith in the viewer. Concerning the former, the film's mystery unravels quickly but never fully gives you the sense that the assailants could be having a sort of shared delusion. What you see is what you get 90% of the time. Now, the script does present several arguments in favor of either side to try and make the viewer believe that it may or may not be a staged event, but ultimately fails when the TV is turned on. Who in their right minds wouldn't think this is an act of God after all the information we'd been presented with prior?
Coincidence? I think not!
Concerning the latter, the film doesn't have enough faith in the viewer's capacity to determine a situation, being incredibly on the nose at times. It inserts unpurposeful dialogue describing obvious situations and characteristics that could have been left up to the viewer's interpretation, adding to the mystery. This isn't an alarming issue from the get-go, but starts becoming one during the third act. Despite the flaws, the film does manage to keep you gripped for most of its runtime, with M. Night's masterful tone and constant escalation. The script does a lot to build up the intrigue and make the mystery work that can be brought to light by a rewatch. The fast pacing and tight 95-minute runtime also benefit the story immensely, always moving on to the next story beat, leaving out lots of places where there could have been additional explanations. Overall, it did succeed in being a home invasion thriller that actually juggled some heavy themes like sacrifice, fighting for what you love, dealing with the consequences of one's actions, and having the courage and willpower to do what's right, in a satisfying way.
Interesting.
With all that said, I do feel like the film's mild reception suffers from 2 things. The filmmaker's reputation with twists, and the trailer spoiling basically every single beat of the film. Seriously, how does this happen twice in a row, Universal? Give Shyamalan a break! On the character side, we have Eric, Andrew, their daughter Wen, and of course the 4 intruders, Adrian, Sabrina, Redmond, and Leonard. The 2 fathers, Eric and Andrew, are polar opposites. Eric is reserved, calm, and understanding, while Andrew sees himself as the fighter and protector. The characters aren't exactly fleshed out, but the film gives enough through flashbacks and little moments that make you fully comprehend their decisions, even when they can seem unreasonable. Wen is the worst written of the 3, her character not only being inconsistent, but also becoming relevant solely when the film feels like it needs an extra layer of conflict to make scenes more dynamic. The kid's performance doesn't help either, being hit or miss depending on the scene. The intruders, on the other hand, feel a lot like regular people who were forced into the situation. It takes the 12 Angry Men approach, defining them by their jobs and personal histories, expanding on those aspects through their actions. Now, of course the film does it nowhere near as well as the 1957 classic, but it does try hard enough, making you care about them as the runtime progresses. All of the performances were great. It's actually one of the core reasons the film was so enjoyable. Even with everyone bringing their A-game, there were a few standouts. Rupert Grint, who I'd like to see in way more films if this is what he's able to bring to the table, at last shedding his Harry Potter skin.
That was bloody brilliant.
Oh, thank you for that assessment, Mr. Weasley.
Ben Aldridge shines as Andrew, the family's anchor. Finally, Dave Bautista steals the show in a role that demanded subtlety and nuance compared to everything he's played before and nails it, all the while captivating the audience with his dominating screen presence.
This is the role, like literally this is the role that I've been waiting, and it's really to prove myself, it's to prove my worth.
The film's score is very atmospheric and at most times remains subtle. It really accompanies the uneasy tone established in the first few minutes till the very end, although the score isn't exactly memorable, mostly consisting of tracks reminiscent of Insidious's violins and the infamous Inception bois.
Comes a film that will obliterate your eardrums with deafening horn noises.
I will commend Shyamalan for not using it as an emotional safety net, especially considering how much the film demanded from the actors with its plethora of emotionally charged scenes. Surprisingly, the soundtrack only consists of Casey and the Sunshine Band's Boogie Shoes, which actually serves a narrative purpose, delivering an emotional and character-driven payoff.
Can you open the door, please?
On the cinematography side, the film does boast some unsettling imagery and neat visual tricks to keep the singular location setting fresh, all the while prioritizing long takes and close-ups when characters need to deliver emotionally charged monologues, which happens quite often. The camera does stray away from the more violent scenes but keeps just enough in frame to let audiences imagine the rest, which does add to the slow building tension. Finally, the film tries very hard at times to enhance the feeling of our characters' claustrophobia and shortage for time by constantly increasing focal lengths during certain sequences, but to no avail, coming off as unnecessary extreme close-ups that add nothing to the scene.
Let me show you how it's done.
Did I enjoy the film? Yes, despite its flaws, I was actually entertained but found myself underwhelmed by the last 15 minutes due to the poor execution.
They couldn't finish.
Oh, really?
I think it is a return to form for Shyamalan in writing and direction, and I will probably give it a rewatch whenever it comes out on digital, although for the most part it will be due to the acting. For now, I would go so far as to give it a solid recommendation. In the end, Knock at the Cabin is a worthwhile Shyamalan thriller that manages to deliver a unique spin on the home invasion subgenre, although stumbles along the way and across the finish line, but was ultimately saved by its gripping performances and M. Night Shyamalan's masterful tone and direction. Thank you all for watching and sticking around this long. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do subscribe and drop a like if you did, and hopefully, I'll see you all next time.